Of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again are my co-hosts Richie O'Leary and Alec Crouthamel, and beat reporter Craig Epstein. It's going to be a basketball pod. Rutgers had their unofficial media day yesterday. They set it up a little bit differently than how they've done it in years past, but all three guys got to sit in on a practice, talk to Pikiell and the staff after the practice concluded. So we'll get into what they saw and what was said. Give you kind of a 360-degree look at what happened yesterday. But first, this podcast is once again presented to you by FanDuel. This Rutgers Iowa line's kind of been moving all over the place. I woke up this morning, checked it out. Rutgers was now a 3.5-point dog. And right before we started recording this, Rutgers is back to 2.5. So you might have missed a really good opportunity to get that 3.5 number, because I think there's no way that Rutgers doesn't cover that. But I still really like this money line at plus 115 for the Scarlet Knights on Friday night. I think it's a matchup that really favors the Scarlet Knights in general, and we'll get into more of that later today. We'll be recording with Jeffrey the Greek to go over this Iowa matchup and give our predictions. But this is going to be purely basketball, so let's get right into that. I'm going to start with you, Craig. What are your initial thoughts, just like high level, on what you saw yesterday at the Hoops Media Day?
Yeah, I mean, I know right now a lot of the feelings around this team aren't very high, and I don't want to kind of beat a dead horse, but it's just, I mean, it's just not. I didn't think it was that great, to be honest. I mean, there was some good players. There were some guys who showed flashes here and there. I'm sure we'll get into it later. Dylan Grant, to me, far and away looked like the most consistent, the best player on the team. And some of the younger guys have shown some promise. Lino Mark, I think, looked pretty good, and Caden Powers hit some shots here and there. But for the most part, it's just a lot of question marks with this team, where there's a lot of we'll talk about, obviously, what Steve Pikiell talked about, how there's really no starters right now, and that's because nobody has really stood out to really, I guess, Pikiell and to us either. I thought the same thing, is that nobody's really kind of standing out and being like, wow, that's the guy who's going to be, the star of the team, where we know this is going to be a very defensive, gritty type of team, of really a Steve Pikiell type of team. But at the same time, I mean, it's 2025 college basketball. At some point, the points got to come from somewhere. And right now, if tie score or you need a shot to win the game, I'm not really quite sure right now who would take that shot, to be honest. I mean, JaMychal Davis will probably be the guy that really runs the offense. He's going to be the number one point guard, but do you trust him taking a game-winning shot? Do you trust him really manning an offense? I mean, I just don't know, because we've never seen it. So there's really just a lot of question marks with this team, and right now I don't have a lot of answers, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's important context that you guys have all been at these kind of spring or these preseason practices now for several years, so you have kind of that backlog of what the 23-24 team looked like and the 22-23 team looked like. So it's kind of using that context to kind of judge this year. But speaking of that, Rich, what are some of the things that you kind of saw yesterday, high level?
They have zero offense. I'm sorry, but there is just not a offensive capable player on the team. It's very scary, because we went from seeing like the Geo Bakers and Ron Harpers of the world, who are above average at offense. Then we got to see beyond talented on offense in Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. And this year, I don't really see a lot of offense from this team. I think they're getting back to their nitty-gritty style of ball, and it's going to be ugly basketball where it's just playing defense and rebounding. Is that going to win you many games? I don't think so, personally. I think there's a lot of promise with some of these young pieces. Specifically, I really like the way Lino Mark was running the point. I think he'll be a really talented kid if you can keep him. Chris Nawoli, the same thing, if you can keep him. That's the big problem, is you're going to have to keep these guys too if they produce. But high level, I would just say defense is better than what it was last year. It's still not at that middle point of like college basketball. I still need to see more. But there's still a lot of issues. I really don't know who's going to score the basketball this year. And that's literally like 60-70% of the game. Like, you need to score points in order to win, especially in today's day and age where offense basically dictates if you're going to win the game or not.
How about you, Alec? High level thoughts from yesterday?
Yeah, kind of echoing a lot of what Richie and Craig have already said. There were definitely some individual performances that were encouraging. Like Richie said, Lino Mark. I kind of wanted him to do a little bit more with like scoring and stuff like that. But I thought the way that he kind of ran things, I thought he had good vision. He made some good decisions on the floor with the ball as well. So definitely like what I saw from him. Same with Chris Nwoli. He's just a straight up athlete. It seems like he can play the 3 or the 4. So I honestly think he's going to be competing for a starting spot, if not starting at the 3 or 4. I would probably say 4 if I had to guess now. Um, the centers, my worries were not overly soothed by what I saw on the floor yesterday. So the so much of what made Rutgers defense great, and when it was at its best, was the rim protection, and you have to have that strong rim protecting center that the defense can kind of funnel towards. And I'm not sure if we have that. I know Steve Pikiell said that by fall was the best shot blocker on the team, and I thought he had some solid reps when defending the rim, going up against Ogbole and Javante Ware. But is he going to be able to do that for extended periods of time on the floor, like a Cliff Amore, like a Miles Johnson? Very high bar, obviously, because those are two of the best rim protectors that we've seen in program history. I guess I'll have to wait and see. I think one thing that Steve Pikiell mentioned, they probably committed like the 20 or 30 fouls in the practice that we saw was probably a little bit more than that. So I think that the mentality and the aggressiveness is definitely there. It's just a matter of, obviously, like Richie and Craig said, who's going to score. If I had to guess, probably someone like Dylan Grant maybe leads the team in scoring. I thought Herman Zerno, we know he's a good shooter, and that definitely showed, but I didn't see a ton of creation from him. Now, granted, just one practice, so he could be doing a lot more in other practices, but yeah, not a ton of creation. I think a lot of his looks are going to have to be manufactured, and if you can manufacture those looks, I think he could lead the team in scoring. But yeah, kind of like what Craig said, I thought Dylan Grant had some flashes. His jumper just looks a lot more confident than it did last year, and if his jumper looks better and has a better efficiency, then he could really take a leap as a player, just going from year 1 to year 2. But yeah, some of my offensive worries were not exactly soothed, like I said. So I'm not really sure what to expect. The offense was not overly inspiring. The defense was fine, I guess. Kind of what we'd expect from a Steve Pikiell team. So yeah, kind of similar to what Richie and Craig said. Ton, not a ton of great things I saw on offense, which is obviously the thing that we're looking for most.
So you guys obviously saw practice, you saw a scrimmage. Who would you say stood out to you the most in a positive sense? Rich, I'll let you start with this one.
Dylan Grant, by far. I think there's not even a question. He's actually the best player on the team by a long shot. He really improved his offensive game, not just his offensive game. He just seems more confident shooting the ball. He wasn't afraid to take threes. I think he had 2 of 4 in the scrimmages of threes. He took a mid-range shot, which he tried to bank, which was like on the weirdest angle, like a little bit off the block. And it's just like, don't bank it from that angle. Don't even try to bank it. You're not Tim Duncan. Just shoot it in or shoot it at the hoop. But yeah, no, I think Dylan Grant was on the floor. He was diving for the ball. I think he was actually the only guy that was legitimately like diving for the ball in practice. And you love to see that. He's always had that grit. He's always been a good rebounder. I think we said it before he even got to Rutgers. He had like an 18 rebound game in the EYBL circuit, which is like unheard of because everyone there is just trying to get their own and just trying to get buckets at that point. And he's out there just rebounding for them. But yeah, I think Dylan Grant easily has to be the most impressive player on this team. And the concern is, again, how much can he realistically score? I think there's a chance he could be the leading scorer. I just don't know if he'll be that leading scorer because maybe one of the guards steps up in an ideal world. But I think he's a guy that will give you a solid 8 to 10, or if not more, per night.
All right, how about you, Alec? Who do you think stood out the most for you in the script, or just in the practice in general?
I would agree with Grant, but to be different, to not have the same one, I'm going to say Chris Nwoli. I just think his athleticism, and I think he has a pretty solid feel for the game as well. It seems like he's already built a pretty good rapport with the team as well. I think that the team as a whole, I guess the culture, which seems like a buzzword at this point, but seems like it's pretty good. We're talking about some of the worries on the floor, but I think off the floor they're fine. Even though there's a lot of newcomers, I feel like they've kind of all blended together really well. So yeah, I'll say Nwoli. I just think his athleticism, the way he runs the floor, just as like a really dynamic wing. I mean, there's, obviously coming out of his recruitment, there were some questions about his jumper, and I do think it's still a little bit inconsistent, but I think he can probably be one of the, maybe not the leading scorer, but just from the eye test, one of the better players on the team in his first year.
Greg, same question to you. You could feel free to answer it however you want.
Yeah, I would agree with Richie that I think Dylan Grant I think he's the best all around player where he can do a bunch of different things. He can score. It looks like like you said, he got more confidence jump shot. He can defend, do all these different things. For the most part, it seems like a lot of these guys are good at something, but they're not really good at everything. Whereas Zerno is probably the best pure shooter on the team. But it's just, again, like we said, that he's not a guy who's going to create his own shot. It's a guy where you're going to have to probably scheme him to get open, as we've seen, especially last year with, the Zach Martinis and the PJ Hayeses. That wasn't exactly their forte, is, helping these guys get their own shot. And I'm really just not sure we'll see about Zerno's defense. And like you said, I think he's a gritty guy, but we'll just see if he's got the speed and the timing to keep up with, a Big Ten style defense. And then there's a guy like Badalo, where it's just like he talked about, he prides himself on his passing abilities, and we'll see, as we watch him more and more, we'll see how he is. But is he? We're just not really sure. Is he a great shooter? How good is he in defense? How is he going to acclimate to the college game? I mean, it's just a lot of unknowns. Like you said, Alec Crouthamel is a gritty guy, good defender. Is he going to be a really good scorer? Is he going to be a guy that can get in the paint? Can he shoot? Which is something we're not really sure about. And Fall, again, a guy who's it seems to be very athletic. I saw he made a jump shot yesterday. But to be honest, having a 205-pound center in the Big Ten is kind of worrisome. And it's hard not to think that a guy that really rail thin is not going to get, kind of bullied a bit in the paint, but maybe he'll use his athleticism to really kind of like Cliff did against, Kofi Coburn back in the day, where it's like, even though he wasn't nearly as, big and blocky as him, he used his athleticism to make up for it. So is Fall going to be the type of guy that can use his athleticism to hide some of the deficiencies he might have? So again, it's just a lot of mixing and matching with these guys, and it's up to Steve Pikiell and the rest of the staff to find that perfect mix of defense and see if they can find some more offense.
I thought it was funny. John Rothstein, who was there yesterday, tweeted out that by Fall's list is 6'11", 205 in Rutgers roster. I haven't seen 205 since 1998.
Oh my god! Yeah, his bit is just. He's so ingrained in that character at this point that he
does it.
I wonder if he is different in real life, or this is just who he is.
We heard him behind us all practice. He's the same person.
John Rothstein here with Rothstein's reactions.
I legitimately, I don't want to attack the guy, but I legitimately think like he has that TV voice 24/7. He's like, "Hey, John Rothstein, nice to meet you." And I'm like, "Oh God, Jesus Christ!" Like, dude, it's not a bit 24/7. Be normal.
Siri, activate human mode, please. Thank you.
Exactly.
All right, let's do something a little different. We didn't talk about this before the pod. Let's build a starting five. Each of us is going to choose one player and build it around the player that players that have already been chosen. We're going to take Dylan Grant and just put him into the starting five because you all said he looks like the best player. He's going to be a starter. So let's move forward with that premise. Who has the most conviction about a guy starting? You could start there. Does anyone have a really strong inkling of who would be a starter? If not, I'll just take the reins and I'll call on you afterward. Alec, you do?
I think Herman Zerno is pretty much locked into a starting role at this point.
All right, so we got in our starting lineup, we got Dylan Grant and we got Hernan Zerno. Alec's choice is Hernan Zerno. How about you, Richie? Who would be your third player in this starting lineup?
Well, if we're being hypothetical, like Pike says there's no starting lineup, there's a starting lineup. Like I could tell you what it is in reality, but are we making like what we think our best starting lineup would be?
Based on what you saw and kind of what fits best into this lineup we're building together, that's kind of the premise.
Okay. Darren Buchanan. I feel like we didn't even talk about him.
Yeah. We'll talk a little. This gives us also an opportunity to kind of talk about why. Yeah.
Darren Buchanan's probably the best defender on the team. Pike even said so in his presser post-practice. I think Pike overhyped him a little bit. I don't think he's a Caleb McConnell. I don't think he's Mawat Mag, but I think he's a solid defender. Even after talking to him after practice, he goes, I'm not really here to get mine. I'm here to just help the team where I can. If it means 5 points and 10 rebounds, that's what I'll do. If it means 5 points, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, that's what I'll do. Like, I'll do whatever it takes. And he's a culture guy, buys into the program. He's what Pike wanted from the get-go. Like, Pike wanted him, 3 years ago now? And he is just happy to be there. And I think he kind of fits that mold of a long, lengthy defender / wing guy that can kind of do a little bit of everything for Pike in terms of defense, rebounding, and even put up buckets here once in a while.
Craig, I'm going to let you choose the point guard, but I'm going to go with Bayfall as the center. Michael had a lot of good things to say about him, talking about him being the best shot blocker on the team. And we all know how badly his defense needs that presence in the middle. So I'm going to say Bayfall is the best starting big on the roster. And now we need a point guard here, Craig. So who do you think you would put in at point guard for this team?
Yeah, I think honestly this is probably the easiest choice of all of them, is that it's going to be JaMychal Davis. I mean, Pikiell basically said, without saying it, that he's probably going to make JaMychal Davis a captain. And just look at his competition. I mean, right now I don't think it's going to be Tariq Francis, a transfer from NGIT. He's probably going to be the backup guard. I just can't see him beating out, a guy who's been here a couple of years now, knows what it's like to play in Big Ten basketball, and played some, just really big games. And and it's not going to be Lino Mark again, a freshman that's just basically just got here 5 minutes ago, and it's like, I just don't. Again, he's not going to start over a guy who's, again, as experienced and has shown. JaMychal Davis again. I mean, I think at this point we all kind of know what JaMychal Davis is. That he's got some offense. He's got some offensive deficiencies, but he's arguably could pound for pound be the best on-ball defender. He's just that type of guy that Steve Pikiell loves. And he's going to be matched up against those quicker type of guards that the Big Ten is going to show you. So yeah, I mean, that's probably to me the easiest choice of them all, is that JaMychal Davis is going to be the starting point for this guard. We were saying it last year, and rings true today.
So for our starting lineup that we built together, we got JaMychal Davis running point. We got Heron Zerno as the shooting guard. We got Dylan Grant and Darren Buchanan as wings / 3-4. Doesn't really fully matter. And then we got Bayfall as our big. Richie, you said you kind of know what the starting five would be. Did we build what you thought the starting five would be, or is it going to be a little bit different, do you think?
That's probably what it's going to be. It's going to be J-Mike at the 1. Although I do think Lino Mark's the better fit, honestly. Now, mind you, I watched one practice, so take it with a grain of salt. But Lino Mark, when he was out there, the offense just flew better. Like, it was a flow better. Yeah, I don't know. Flow better. Yeah, I said that wrong. It just flowed a lot better. It just seemed like he was also at moments where he was kind of just running too fast for his own good, and was just kind of like all over the place, which was like, Jesus Christ, relax, calm down. I think he'll end up taking over that starting role at some point because they're going to need offense. But that's probably the starting lineup. The other issue is that Fall, despite being the best shot blocker on the team, despite having a high upside, is just crazy with and I said it to you guys yesterday, his extremities are everywhere. Like he's literally he might be the best shot blocker, but he's also going to lead the team in fouls by a significant margin. He is just throwing arms and this and that, and even when he's getting boxed out, he's somehow on the ground, but his arms up here, almost getting a rebound at the same time. It's just, he's a very lengthy, new school center. It's just, I don't know if he could really stay out there on the court long enough to prove it. That's the problem. So between him getting foul trouble, between Emmanuel probably going to be in foul trouble again, I'm very concerned about that the center position in general. And I think you're going to see more Javonte Ware than you probably want to.
Yes, we haven't talked about a few players that much, so I just want to give them a few minutes on their own, and I'll just kind of call on one of you guys and you could talk about him. Tariq Francis, he's a guy who came in from NJIT. Alec, what did you see out of Tariq Francis yesterday?
Not a whole lot out of kind of what we expected. I didn't have his best shooting day, but we were told from, I think Pikiell said this, and then I heard from a few of the players that we talked to as well. His percentages have been very good since summer practice has started, since he's been with the team. It seems like he's probably built to be that sixth man kind of guys, like the spark plug off the bench who can put the ball in the basket. So we'll see how that works out. Yeah, not a whole lot of I guess explosion or anything like better than expected or whatever, but he was all right. I mean, he did a solid job defensively, which I think is definitely kind of a question to see how he adjusts to the Big Ten in terms of scoring and defense. The shot wasn't exactly falling, and his efficiency wasn't great at NJIT last year. But if it is to be believed that he's been the best shooter, consistently percentage wise, take with that what you will.
All right, Craig, what did you see out of one of the true freshmen, Caden Powers, yesterday?
Yeah, there wasn't too much out of him, to be honest. I didn't see too much out, but I did notice he made a couple shots going up and down the court here and there. So I was like, okay, might be something there that if they need some offense, he can be the type of guy. I just don't know. To be honest, I just don't know how much he's going to play this year again, because he's got, look at his competition. He could be potentially, I mean, Jamichael Davis, Tariq Francis, Lino Mark. It's just like, I don't really, and I'm just not 100% sure right now where his role is going to be on this team, but I could see him being a guy that eventually later on, if he proves himself, if his shot making is what it looked like yesterday, he could be a guy that finds himself battling for a role in this team, and we could see more and more at him. But I think he's the type of guy that I'm not quite sure how much we're going to see out of him this year. But again, it's a lot. I think for the most part, this is a team that's going to need time to develop, where there's a lot of young guys on this team that just need that need that time, that need that development. And unfortunately, in 2025 college basketball, their development really doesn't seem to be much of a thing, because we see how many people transfer, and see if you're too good, you're going to transfer because you're going to get a bag. And if you're not good and you're not getting playing time, you're going to transfer because you're not getting playing time. You're going to go somewhere where you are going to get playing time. So it's just a case of, if these guys, stick around for multiple years, I do think they could develop into quality players. It's just I don't have a crystal ball, and especially in the way college basketball is today, I don't know what the future holds.
No, that's totally fair. And there's some questions from the presser that I thought were interesting that we'll kind of get into at the end of this little exercise. But yeah, it's I think Pikiell needs to kind of figure out how to be a successful coach in an era of college basketball that is not conducive to the way he wants to run a program. But one of the guys he was able to bring back and maybe develop a little bit this past year is Bryce Dortch. Rich, what did you see out of Bryce Dortch in the practice, and does he look like he's improved from the end of last year?
He's gained some weight. He looks a little bit better. He was kind of rotating between the 4 and the 5, which I found interesting. I always thought he was more of a 4 than anything, but we saw him last year as a 5. And mind you, he was pretty skinny too last year. So that kind of goes hand in hand with the fall thing, that he can play the 5 at 205. But yeah, I mean, it's not like he does anything super crazy. I think his jumper's not as broken as it was last year in that one clip that we continuously play over and over again. But yeah, no, I think he'll be a contributor this year. I actually think they're going to go at least 10 deep, just because they have to out of necessity. Between Francis, like Alex said, Pike called him his highest percentage shooter. Between Nwoli, between even Caden Powers is probably going to get minutes. Like, they need someone to score the fucking basketball. I know I sound like a broken record, but there's just not anyone on this team that has really convinced me they could do that. In terms of Dortch, though, I do think he'll play a role. I think he'll play a rotational piece role. He'll probably back up Grant for the time being, but I could see him getting some 5 minutes if there's foul troubles there. There was a lineup where they had actually Grant playing the 3, Dortch playing the 4, and I think it was Agbole playing the 5 at one point, with Tariq Francis and Lino Mark running the point. Running the backcourt. And it's just like, okay, you're going extremely small in the backcourt, and then you're going extremely big in the front court. So it's or lengthy in the front court. So just some really weird rotations. But I do think he'll play a role this year. I think he'll play more minutes. Yeah.
I know we've kind of referenced him a little bit. Chris Nwoli was the highest rated guy in the class of the 7-man freshman class, rather. Alec, did he live up to that billing? Did he look like the best freshman out there?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like his feel for the game is pretty good. He's also, like I said before, he has some great athleticism. I think he could be, if he does get a starting role, he could be in contention to lead the team in rebounds just because he has some really good size, especially if he plays like the three, which may not be very good for spacing, but he's big and athletic enough to, if he plays the three, could be a really, a really big threat at that position, especially defensively and in the rebounding game. So, yeah, I thought he was he was probably the best freshman out there. I just want to see a little bit more in terms of his shooting ability, which definitely was a question mark coming in. But um, I thought he definitely lived up to at least what I was expecting from him yesterday.
Greg, another the freshman who was at one point a 4-star, Javante Ware. Is he looking like he could possibly break the top two big men, or you think he's behind Bayfall and Emmanuel Bole?
Yeah, right now I think he's probably behind both of those guys, and I think he, like Richie said, he's probably like the number 3 center out of like an emergency type role, and it's like, well, if you get to that point, that's probably not a good thing. But I do like his his body size, where it's like it looks like a big, strong, hulking type of guy that can really take the physicality of the Big Ten. But it's all about being smart and not taking dumb fouls, or being sometimes you can be too aggressive and you find yourself again in foul trouble. But I definitely would feel more comfortable right now of him not being the center, maybe playing more of that 4 role right now, just because again his size can be a pretty good mismatch possibly at like a 4, but the 5 I think he probably would be an emergency 5, and as we've seen in the past, where if you get to that point, that's probably not a good thing for the team if you find Agbali and Fall both in foul trouble. And I was going to mention before when you were talking about Fall as a center, that I have a feeling that Agbali is just going to start the season as center, just because I think we've seen in the past where he kind of leans towards more veteran guys that have been around more to start the year. But I do think at some point you kind of hope Fall would probably take that role, just because I think he's more athletic and just he's a better shooter and just a little bit of a better all-around player. So I do think at some point Fall would take that role, but I just have a feeling Agbali is going to start the season as the center.
And kind of rounding it out, we all know what Emmanuel Agbole is. I doubt that he's made any advancements, so I'm not even going to ask on him. I got to know.
Pike said he did. Pike said his hands were great in practice, and that's where this is where you lose me a little bit. Because his hands weren't great in practice. They were actually the same as last year. Like, he used to fumble in the ball, and eventually grabs it and goes up and gets a dunk. He looks muscular as fuck. He's massive. He's the biggest dude on the fucking court every single goddamn time. The lengthiest dude on the court every single goddamn time, and can't do shit. I'm sorry, but I don't know what he has on Pike, or what dirt he has, or what photos he has. How does this man keep starting in the Big Ten?
If only we knew.
I held back for 27 minutes. I couldn't do it much longer.
The final guy that we haven't talked about a ton is the Romanian Denis Badalo. In the presser, Pikiell mentioned that he's shot like 49% from 3 in like the live ball setting so far in practice. Rich, did that live up to what you saw in the scrimmage, or maybe he's pumped the brakes there on him?
I don't think he took a single 3 all practice. Wow. So it's like, sure, if you want to say he shot 49% on 4 of 8, sure, we'll go with it. But in reality, I don't know. Craig, I think you said this. Looks like he's on one of your men's league guys, and I'm like, thanks, Craig. Yeah, exactly what our team looks like, actually. He doesn't seem super athletic. He's young, so he'll learn. It was interesting to talk to him, though, because he was all about like talking about just the differences between a Euro game and here. He's like, we can't be flashy over there. We're not told to be flashy. We're actually told to not do anything flashy. Just play fundamentals. And we've heard this before. Europe is so all in on fundamental basketball. It's all about the basics, versus here it's like, ooh, watch this dunk. Ooh, watch this behind the back pass. Ooh, watch this alley-oop. And it's just interesting how that works. But he's a very smart player. And credit to him, his vision is really good. He's a muscular dude too. Like, he's got some size to him, some beef to him. He's not afraid to push people in the paint. I'm intrigued to see what he can actually do. I just think he's kind of down the bench option for this at this moment. Kind of like a 3-4. I don't know if he can guard 3, so he's probably going to strictly be a 4-man for Rutgers. But between him and Haroun, I think that they're going to have to adjust quite a bit to the speed of the game. Lateral movements aren't really there, and that goes back to hand in hand with like Europe versus American basketball. Speed versus fundamentals, slow the pace down, and make sure you get the bucket. So I don't know how much he'll play, but he's kind of right now. I would say there's a reason he was probably the 14th. Well, technically not including Dorian Jones. He was the 13th, 14th man on this roster.
I did. Sorry, Mike. I was gonna say I did think it was interesting for all the players. I kind of asked, the players that I talked to at least, I asked about Hearn and Dennis, how they've acclimated, what they like about them. All of them have said like the first thing they've said is that they have very high basketball IQ. They're very high IQ guys. So hopefully that kind of trickles down to the rest of the team when it comes to the offensive game. Just making right decisions, things like that. So it seems like that's what they've brought to the table at least so far.
I got one more thing before we go too far past Dennis. So we're talking to him. We're talking about college classes. We're like, how's it been, the transition like? He's like, I'm taking rock and roll. And we're like, nice. Awesome. He's like, we're like, what's it like college classes versus like college classes or classes over there? And he's like, here, you don't have to really pay attention. And I'm like, yeah. He's like,
Richie said, I know. Richie said, I did that and I failed math twice.
No, whoa, once. And it was in high school. That wasn't in college. But anyway, he said he's like basically like back home, like you don't pay attention, teacher yells at you. Here, it's all online. No one can yell at you. No one cares if you do this or that. And it's like, geez, man, like education system needs a little bit of work there. But it was just funny to hear him just describe how much harder classes are over there and versus here. Yeah, it's just funny.
Yeah, he was my favorite person to talk. He just spoke so like matter of factly, and it was just like it's so different just because a lot of these guys are just not some guys are more talkative than others. Some guys are just a little more reserved. But he was just so like matter of factly of the way he spoke, and it was just very like I asked Richie. I thought he was older. Honestly, I was surprised. He said he was. I think he's only 18. I thought he was like I thought he was like way more mature for his age. He was just very funny guy.
For all the foreign players, all of them spoke pretty good English, and that wasn't an issue when you're talking to any of them.
No, Dennis speaks actually 3 languages. He said, I think it was Italian because obviously Italian league, English, and then what is it, Bosnian that he's from?
He's from
Dennis is from Romania.
Oh, he's from Romania, and then Haroon's from Bosnia, right?
Yep.
Am I wrong on that? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
There you go. Yep, that's what it was.
And then the final player we haven't really discussed because, frankly, he was not there yesterday, Dorian Jones. Mike said he had the flu, and I think there's still some eligibility questions there for this upcoming year. So that's why he wasn't there.
Real quick on that, because everyone's going to talk about this on the press conference. When asked about eligibility, he said no one squared away with eligibility, and it's like, wait, what? Like, hold on. I think he misspoke in terms of other guys not being eligible, but I'm just kind of also just hoping he misspoke because you can't say everyone or no one squared away with eligibility at the moment because that's just a major concern. But yeah, I don't expect Dorian Jones to play maybe until midseason if they even get this squared away in time. Who knows?
I'm gonna guess what he meant by that was like, it's the NCAA. Who the heck knows with anybody and everybody? Yeah, at least I hope that's what he meant. I mean, I can't think of like
the only other two. That's what's the concern is. I don't.
But I feel like he would have maybe said something if there was an actual issue with that, or maybe we've heard something, but we haven't. So
fair.
I'm gonna think it was just like a boilerplate, like, hey, it's the NCAA. Who knows? Type thing. Otherwise, yes, that would be a big problem. I mean, aside from Zerno and Badalu, I don't know who else could have eligibility issues.
You hope the freshmen all qualified, but somehow they got Dorian Jones in when he couldn't get into Ohio State. So that's another major question mark. How the fuck did you pull that one off?
Yeah, no, it's I wouldn't expect to see him on the court this year. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what was said at the pressers. Pikiell spoke to the media for over 20 minutes after the scrimmage was over. You guys also got to talk to some individual players. But let's talk about one thing that stood out to you from what Pikiell said. Craig, I'll let you start. What was something that Pikiell said that really stood out?
I think one of the lines that kind of was, I think people are going to run with a bit is when he was asked about the GM position, and he talked about it's for men's and women's, and with the timeline for that, and he said, well, the timeline was really 3 years ago. I thought that was kind of an interesting little line that seems like he's not too happy with the way things were run before, and kind of feels like threw Pat Hobbs under the bus a little bit. Is that, yeah, I mean, it's just been a problem that we've been saying, kind of been beating, and everybody's kind of been beating to death. It feels like the last few years, is that they're just so right now. I just feel like they're so far behind on where college basketball and college sports are right now, where they need a GM to really figure out the financials and things like that. Because this, I mean, the way you build a team right now is with money. Is that you want to get the better players, you got to have more money, and right now this program doesn't exactly feels like a ton of money, and that's why the transfers they bring in aren't exactly the best of the best. So it's just like that was the line that I thought was kind of made me pause for a little bit and think to myself that that was a little bit of an interesting line.
All right, how about you, Rich? What was something that stood out to you that Craig or that Pikiell said?
That's a tough one. I mean, he kept saying 14 guys. He's so happy that he has 14 guys. He's going to continue to do this in the future. This is a guy that, mind you, was only using like 11 scholarships for the most part every year. Now he's all of a sudden going to switch to the 14 scholarship, if not 15 scholarships, because you can use all 15 now with the new rules. So I found it interesting that he kept saying that for the sole fact that I think he's legitimately going to have to do a pretty deep rotation this year for the team. Just because you're going to have everyone does something like decent, average to above average, but then their other qualities are below average, and that's the problem. Like Jermichael Davis is a really good defender. Can he score? No. Lino Mark's better at running the point. Can he score? Yes. Can he defend? Probably. At the moment, I don't think so. He could develop that, of course, over time. Like Chris Nwoli, really good offense, really solid defense. That's one of those all-around players that's going to push for starting minutes. Like you're just going to have so many different pieces between the center roles. If they get in foul trouble, you might see 3 centers per game. Power forward, I mentioned before, it's like George Grant, Nwoli, Buchanan can all play the 4. They can also play the 3. So there's just so many different pieces that are going to play this year. And the fact that he kept saying 14 players, we have 13, 14 guys, tells me that he's legitimately looking into doing like a 10-plus man rotation. Is it going to work? I have to wait and see.
Alec, how about you?
Yeah, before that, just one quick thing on what Richie was talking about. I do think it's almost a little bit concerning because it does sound kind of similar to the team 2 years ago when we saw how that went. Not well.
Yep.
I think the thing that kind of stuck out to me when he was talking was the emphasis on like keeping those relationships through recruiting, whether it's in high school recruiting. He talked a lot about they were on these guys early, the freshmen and all that. But just even keeping a relationship with the guys, even if they, choose to commit elsewhere. Guys like Darren Buchanan, who they were after since he was in high school and almost got him when he was coming out of high school out of Washington, D.C. Someone like Tariq Francis, who obviously has that really long-time relationship with Brandon Knight. Obviously, there's been a big relationship there for a long time. Even a guy like Hernan Zerno, who came into the fold late, but Rutgers was after him before he ended up coming to Indiana. They were involved in his recruitment. So just keeping those relationships. Same with a guy like Byfall, who Pikiell said, we were probably the school he said that Rutgers was probably the school that was recruiting him the hardest. I believe that was what he said. So, just keeping those relationships when it comes to recruiting. So, I guess when looking into the portal, it's like, always got to take a look at the guys who Rutgers tried to recruit the first time around, and don't be surprised if some of those guys return. Because when I talked to Byfall, that was another thing he said, that you just had a great relationship with the staff already, back when he was in high school. And then that was kind of reignited when he entered the portal for the second time last year. So that was kind of what stuck out to me, just keeping those relationships up and could be a look into the portal strategy.
I'll piggyback on that real quick. It's a concern too, because he's only landing them after they stink at their other locations. Like Darren Buchanan didn't choose to go to Rutgers after Virginia Tech. He chose to go to George Washington. Bayfall didn't choose to go to Rutgers after Arkansas. He chose to go to Kansas State. So it's also taking them 2 trips to get here too, which is a concern at that point because they're either good or not good at that point.
Yeah, it's never fun to take sloppy seconds. It's especially if the player does not live up to the expectations. Or third
seconds
in this
case.
Yeah, it's all thirds at this point.
Um, anything else that you guys, we didn't mention already that Pikiell said that you wanted to touch on? It could be from anybody. I'm not going to call any, but if there was anything specifically that any of you guys can think of, let me know.
Yeah, I just noticed Pikiell talked about it, and it seemed to be a very big theme with the team. Is that chemistry was it seemed like the kind of the buzzword throughout. Is that the team's chemistry they kept saying was very very good, and they're all very close and things like that. And it's interesting, and I asked Pikiell about it, and it's something I've been kind of thinking for the last couple of years. Is that how do you build chemistry when there's so much roster turnover year after year? Now for Rutgers' case, they do have a lot of returning guys between Grant, Dortch, Agbali. Jermichael Davis. There's several guys who are coming back, but at the same time, we talked about it. You got a guy like Zerno, new player who potentially could be a starter. You got Buchanan, new player, could potentially be a starter, and we'll see about fall. New guy could potentially be a starter. So it's just one of those things that it's like I'm just fascinated to see. Pikiell's, what made really this program and Pikiell special was the development of the Geo Bakers, the Ron Harpers, the Caleb McConnells over the course of a couple of years, and that chemistry that they built up. It wasn't day one that these guys came in and they became an NCAA tournament team. It took years of them playing together and really growing up together. And that's probably the main worry with this regime right now, is that do they have what it takes to really build a team year after year and make that chemistry turn really 3 years of chemistry into one off season? And that's really the biggest question mark, where how are you going to combine a lot of these returning players and a lot of these new players and really just make it mesh? And that's just really my number one question mark for this, really, for Steve Pikiell and his coaching staff, is can they turn really 3 years of chemistry, can they turn that into one?
Yeah, because it's like you have to kind of stick with something, right? Some kind of ethos. Like Pikiell can't say like, we're in a different world now. You can't develop kids anymore, blah, blah, blah. But chemistry is so important. And then you can't, if you're going to, want to keep kids, you're going to need to pay them. And you can't, I don't know. It seems like a lot of guys got forced out after last year. It's not like they fought really hard to keep certain guys. Maybe it's a money issue. Maybe it wasn't. Regardless, if you're casting your lot year after year with these big freshman classes, like you kind of have to just keep the majority of them, even if they're not performing in the way that you would have hoped. Because if you, as Steve Pikiell, are declaring that like, success is built on chemistry inherently is only developed from time on the court together, you kind of need those several years of buildup of that in order to play the way he wants. So you hope that Kelly Zinn coming in can help him with the resources he needs to keep some of those players, to see if his ethos is still viable in 2025. I think we all kind of agree that like it's probably not the way to do things in 2025, because you see it all over the country where teams are able to just retool every year. If there's a system that is transferable, like I feel like his system is just very fragile. Like with all the right inputs, you can build something that can get you to the NCAA tournament, which should kind of be the baseline expectation at this point for the program, given something Kelly Zinn said in her opening presser, is that she's going to take a look at the last few years of how a program has performed and look at where a coaching staff sits salary-wise in the whole ecosystem of that sport, and that's how they'll be judged. So Pikiell gets paid like a top 25 coach. So she, inferring from what she said, is expecting top 25 results. And if he's going to, not present that, I think she needs to either come in and tell him, okay, you're not producing, you haven't been for a few years, we need to revamp your coaching staff, we need to do this, do that. And I just don't know how much Pikiell's going to want to do that, because he's, like you said, he's been here 10 years. He's done things his way, basically unencumbered for 10 years. I just don't see him changing up stuff too much. And that's what we need, is we need change in thought and change in process. And I'm not seeing a whole lot of change this offseason here, guys. So, and I wasn't there. I didn't see the team practice yesterday, but from my view, I don't see it. I don't even know how I got to where I'm talking about right now, but I'm skeptical. I'll say that about how this year is going to go. And based on what you guys saw, I think you guys would agree. Skepticism is maybe even on the conservative end of what we might see from this basketball team in 2025, 2026. Let's talk about some players that you guys spoke to. You already talked about Dennis Badalu. Am I saying his name right? Badalu?
I believe so. Actually got a recording of him saying his last name correctly. I just have to listen back and figure out what he said.
So it sounds like he was the most the best hang of the group, at least from the few minutes you got with each player. Who else stood out to you from a discussion standpoint? It really kind of take this any way you want. Alec, who was a player that stood out to you, either things he said or the way he interacted?
I'll go with. I mean, I've talked a lot about him already. I'll go with Chris Newoli. I didn't get a lot of time with him, but I asked this to him and Caden Powers both. They were coached in high school by NBA stars. He was coached, granted, only for not that long of a time at Dynamic Prep by Jermaine O'Neal. And even though he wasn't there for a long time, I believe it was only the 1 year, his senior year at Dynamic Prep, he had a lot to say about it. So he said, and the first thing he said when I asked him the question, he was like, "Man, you got me reminiscing now." So I thought that was really cool to hear him talk about that experience, and they still talked nowadays as well. Same with Caden Powers. He said that Jamal Crawford, who coached him in high school, kind of took him under his wing and helped with the preparation. That was the common thread from those two guys. What I was able to get from them, and with their backgrounds and being coached by NBA stars, it's just like the biggest thing that they got from them was the preparation, what you have to do to get to that highest level, the way you prepare, the way you treat yourself, things like that. Not even like on the court stuff, like this is how you do this to score or whatever. Just all the mentality stuff, I think, was the coolest thing to hear about in terms of both Caden and Chris Newoli, in terms of their how they were prepared to play at the highest level by people who have done it at the highest level.
How about you, Rich? Which player stood out to you the most?
Darren Buchanan. He was very talkative. I asked him one question, just basically how he got here, and he went on for a solid 4 minutes. I was like, "Oh, dude, this is the best interview ever. I don't even have to ask you anything else. Like, we're good. Like, this is it." But yeah, no, like I just talked to him about everything, about how he got to Rutgers, about his time at George Washington, about his time at Virginia Tech, how that kind of prepared him for this journey all the way back to Rutgers and high major basketball in general. I asked him about some of like the differences and like what went wrong at George Washington, that you went from like this NBA potential prospect to a sixth, seventh man on the bench. But really talkative. We'll have that story up soon. But he seems like, I wouldn't be shocked if he got the captain role too, along with Jermichael Davis, who we, like Craig said before, Pike kind of hinted like it's basically his role at this point. But yeah, I thought he was just a really good talker. He's coaching up the other guys, and he's not selfish either. Like I said before, he's all about how he can help the team, whether it's, and he says it in the quote, I think it's like, if I have to get 3 points a game and 15 rebounds, I'll do that. If I have to get 3 points a game, 6 rebounds and a couple steals and a couple blocks, if I only have to play 10 minutes, that's fine. Whatever it takes to win. So that's the mentality you'd like to hear, and hopefully he can bring that on the court every night.
Yeah, he definitely sounds like a Pike guy from what he said. Greg, how about you? Who stood out to you from these interviews?
Yeah, Chris Newoli was also a pretty funny guy. I remember I asked him, one of the questions I asked him was what made him decide to come to Rutgers. Usually the guys say, for the most part, they all say coaching staff, Steve Pikiell, things like that. But he eventually did say, but if at first he said, I forget the name of the restaurant. I think it was something like Deltas or something. I can't complete, but he mentioned a restaurant, and it was just I've caught me off guard, and I started laughing, and I asked him, well, like, what did you get there? What did you order? He's talking about, I got like mac and cheese and these different things. He's just like, yeah. So that was just completely kind of caught me off guard and made me laugh. And he was a very good interview. And same with Bryce Dortch. Seemed to be I probably did talk to him last year, but he seemed very talkative and a good interview this year. And again, it seems like a lot of these guys have a very just similar mindset, like you said, Richie, where a lot of them just they're playing for each other. None of them are selfish type of players. They really want to see the guy next to them succeed. So they're really, I mean, like I said before, it's a chemistry thing where a lot of them, they seem to be very close already. Several of them talked about, they talk to each other in a group chat and different things like that. So they seem like a very close group and a very, again, just playing for each other type group. There's really no selfish players on this team. So again, we'll see if the chemistry, even though they might not be, on paper, the most talented team then we don't think so. But we'll see if that chemistry is what really brings them together and makes them better than anybody's really expecting them to be.
I actually know which restaurant he's talking about. Delta's in New Brunswick. It's
What's Delta's?
Okay. Yeah, Delta's is like, you got to get there, Craig. Like, you're missing out.
It's like
Are they
Southern
known for their
style.
mac and cheese?
It's like a Southern style restaurant. Yeah, it's like so. You know where Nielsen Street is, New Brunswick?
No. I'm sure I've been down it, but I don't pay attention.
Yeah, so it's like if you're going on 27, like down a little bit past the train station, if you go a little bit farther north on 27, you take a right at the traffic light, and then there's like a couple apartment complexes. It's right next to the Frog and the Peach, another pretty well-known restaurant in New Brunswick. So if you know where the Frog and the Peach is, it's like right next door. We actually went there for my dad's birthday 2 years ago, and let me see if I can pull up the picture of what I got.
You have to like these, but they have really good catfish fingers.
Ooh. Okay.
Catfish fingers, interesting.
Yeah.
This is what I got. Pretty good. Yeah. It was very good. I really liked it there. So I definitely recommend going there if you have not been there.
Yes, you have to. Their ribs are really, really good too.
Okay. See, I'll put that on the list.
And we're open to sponsorships if you're listening. And you happen to.
That's funny. It's
we don't even want to be paid. Just pay us some food.
That's actually what Steve Pikiell said next to me. He was like, "Oh, maybe you get a sponsorship deal from Delta's on the side," and I was just like, it was just a very funny moment.
They have a really good happy hour too. I should say. I'm just saying. I know from experience.
All right, so Delta's, if you're listening to this, hit us up. You know where to find. All right. We've talked for 50 minutes here. Didn't expect it to go this long. Closing thoughts. Anybody have anything that we haven't discussed already that you thought was important, or have we basically exhausted everything from Media Day? Speak up if you want to talk. I don't know who to call on here.
I'd say we kind of exhausted everything, but I want to say this. I don't want to sound super negative, and I definitely did today. I'm not going to lie. But I'm so down on Rutgers basketball. It was so good for so many years. They were like it should have been 3 times in a row if it wasn't for COVID. And they were making tournament runs. They were almost in the Sweet 16. Like it just felt like the program was on the up and up. And then NIL happened and it all fell apart. I want to see them productive. So I don't want people to think like, yeah, you're rooting against them. Like, why would I ever root against them? A good Rutgers basketball, a good Rutgers football is not only good for business, but I'm a Rutgers grad. Everyone here's Craig, did you graduate Rutgers?
No, I went to Kane.
Okay. But like we're Rutgers grads. My whole family's Rutgers grads. I want to see them successful. I'm just tired of seeing non-successful sports at Rutgers. I want to see them take that next leap, that next step. And who knows? Maybe I'm wrong in all my analysis with this basketball team, but I just want to see a better Rutgers basketball team this year. And still, again, I'm hoping for that. I just don't see that on the court in one practice. In the lone practice that we saw, I'm not too optimistic on this team right now.
Yeah, when it comes to the media, everybody eats when Rutgers is good. It's good for business and all that stuff. It's good for our views and things like that. So we're not rooting against them. It's just there's skepticism for where this is going to go.
Yeah, and it's more fun to cover a better team because if this team was to make the tournament, I mean, we would gladly take the trip to Albany or Greensboro. And me and Chris's case, who went to Dayton, and we went drove 10 hours to Dayton to go watch them lose a absolute heartbreaker to Notre Dame. But it's just like, yeah, I mean, the site seems to do better when Rutgers does better. It's more fun to cover a team that's consistently winning. And there's part of me that thinks that, I mean, if this ends up being a done year, I feel like maybe the fan base could have lived with it more if last year with the Dylan and the Ace, if that was just what people envisioned and that was a special year, people could have lived with a little bit of a downward year just because it was a little bit kind of expected. But now the fact that last year was such a massive disappointment and this year looks like it could end up being disappointment. Even the year before that was a disappointment. It was 3 straight years of disappointment. It's tough.
Yeah, because this is not like we're the only people who are maybe not looking at things so sunnily or, in the media. Like there's, Andy Katz, the well-known Rutgers bus driver. He's got Rutgers ranked in the bottom tier of the Big Ten this year. I think he's got them like 15th or 17th. Blue Ribbon came out. I think Rutgers is 17th there. Like, Ant Wright has Rutgers 17th or 18th in the Big Ten. Like it's going to be, by all indications, a bit of a down year. So how does Rutgers handle, fighting past those low expectations? Can Rutgers, punch above their weight a bit? Can they, in a league that's just filled with high impact transfers and legendary coaches, can Rutgers rise above that and fight through and play the way Steve Pikiell wants to? And, because you got to look at it essentially like Steve Pikiell's trying to, run the triple option in an era of spread open offense. If we're taking football metaphors into account, like he is doing something that has long kind of been, legislated out of the game for more efficient ways to play. And he's comfortable with this old school way. Can it work? Sure. It can be that, counterbalance that could be, that counter punch that maybe teams don't necessarily prepare for often. So it can be done. It's just, does he have the personnel to do it? Does he have enough time with these guys where they can learn his system and kind of know it as kind of a second language, like some of the players of the past, like guys like Gio Baker and Ron Harper and Caleb McConnell and Cliff Omori and Miles Johnson, like all these guys, the common denominator there, they're all, widely accepted as, very high level players at Rutgers, maybe even into the level of like the pantheon of greats and legends. They were all here for 3, 4, 5 years. So when they can get into that third, fourth, fifth year in the system, that's when things kind of really start to bloom. Because Gio had some moments as a freshman for sure. Ron redshirted his freshman year, and he kind of had a tough go of it at first. So if that thing was like a sophomore, he became a contributor. So I think these guys are going to need time, and if Pike wants to do it his way, he's going to need to retain these guys and develop them. So let's see if he can do it. I'm not expecting much this year, but if he's able to retain this core and develop them the way he wants to, and maybe add in a few additional transfers next offseason, and I know nobody wants to hear like, we're a year away, but that's honestly, we're a year away at best with this team in the way that Pikiell wants to coach. So just strap in, and this is going to be another season of apathy, I think. I want to be wrong, just like what you guys said. Like, nobody wants this team to be bad across any metric. I'm a fan. I don't want to see a bad team on the court. I don't want to have to hear from another person like, who did Rutgers get this year? I know they had Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper last year, and they didn't make the tournament. Who they got this year? Like I've had so many of my friends who are NBA heads like ask me about Rutgers constantly ever since Dylan and Ace have kind of come and gone, and I'm rambling. But anyway, let's end it here. Thanks guys for giving your thoughts, and everybody who's listened. Let's hope that they perform better than we all think they will, because that would be a surprise. That would be a welcome surprise. But for me, Richie and Alec and Craig, this has been the Rutgers Basketball Media Day edition of the Night Report podcast, and we are signing off.